Welcome everyone to Chapter 10, Nerves Part 1. Today we're diving into movement to explore how the nervous system coordinates every movement and sensation in the body. To understand the system, we have to look at how it's organized. Think of the nervous system as the CEO of the body, so therefore at the top, and it branches into the central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which acts as the middleman network connecting that core to everything else. As therapists, we work with both types of actions. Voluntary actions are the movements you actively choose to make, like when a client moves their arm on the table. Involuntary actions happen automatically without a single thought, such as a client's breathing or their digestion when they relax. And now we're going to break down the divisions, which are seen as color on here on the slide. Yellow is the CNS, or central nervous system, and it regulates all bodily functions. Red is the PNS, or peripheral nervous system, and these are motor and sensory fibers connecting the CNS to the limbs. Blue is the autonomic system. This sits beside the spinal cord and controls your glands and internal organs. And then the somatic system, which is what we deal with most in massage, and it's voluntary control of skeletal muscle. The CNS is our command center, and its primary job is to interpret incoming sensory information like the pressure of your touch and send out motor instructions in response. It consists strictly of the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of the nerve branches and ganglia located outside the spinal cord. Ganglia are just groups of closely related nerve cells that help manage sensory or autonomic data before it even reaches the cord. In the following slides, we're going to cover the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system, or the ANS, will regulate your automatic instinctive functions. We'll go over involuntary action, sympathetic, which is fight or flight, or parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. Sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. And when a client is stressed, they are in a sympathetic state. Their body is prepping for a threat, and heart rate goes up to deliver oxygen to muscles. Pupils dilate to see better in dim light, and adrenaline is released. Crucially for us, digestion is inhibited here because the body is prioritizing survival over recovery. Parasympathetic nervous system, or rest and digest. Our goal in the massage room is usually to trigger this branch. This is the rest and digest state where the heart rate lowers, airways relax, and the body finally starts to stimulate digestion and saliva production. This is the healing zone for your clients. The somatic nervous system is all about voluntary action. It specifically manages our movement and posture. To understand nerves, we have to look at the individual cell, the neuron, and it has the cell body. It contains the nucleus and processes the data. Dendrites receive messages from other cells and transmit them towards the cell body. The axon carries nerve impulses away from the cell body to other neurons or glands, and the myelin is the coating that increases impulse speed. Neurons have two main properties, excitability and conductibility, and their job is to receive sensory information, process that data, and transmit signals to the rest of the body. Now, not all neurons send messages in the same direction. We have sensory or afferent neurons. They transmit sensory impulses to your brain. Motor or efferent neurons send motor impulses from your brain and your spinal cord to muscles. And interneurons carry signals between neurons within your brain and spinal cord. The synapse is the junction where two neurons meet, or where a neuron meets an end organ like a muscle. We call that a neuromuscular junction. These diagrams show a little bit more about how the structure of a nerve is. So you've got neurons to nerves, and it shows the different parts where that all comes together. The motor tails of axons become bundled to form the nerve. So just like our muscles, nerves have layers of protective fascia as well. You have the epineurium is the superficial layer sheathing the entire nerve. The perineurium is the middle layer that bundles axons into fascicles. And then you have the endoneurium. It's the deepest layer coating each individual axon. We have 12 pairs of cranial nerves that primarily innervate the head and sensory organs. Interestingly, CN2, or the optic nerve, isn't considered a true peripheral nerve because it doesn't originate from the brainstem. Here's a list of the 12 cranial nerves. I will print this off so it will be available during class. I think it is something important to have. Okay, now we're going into spinal nerves. We have 4 plexi, which cervical, brachial, lumbar, and sacral. And then we have 12 pairs of thoracic nerves that are not bundled as a plexus. And a couple things to remember here that will help you memorize these or know a little bit more about them is start them, think of them as typical meal times. So numbers often correspond to when we eat. So cervical, which is C1 through C4, breakfast at 4. And now it's a bit early, but it kind of keeps the pattern of breakfast. Then we have brachial, C5 through T1. Brunch is at 5. That's where the arm nerves begin. Lumbar, L1 through L4, lunch at 1. And sacral, L4, S5. Snack at 4 or 5. Those are just some easy tips to help remember that. So we're going to do the major plexi breakdown. So the cervical plexus, C1 through C4, innervates neck muscles and the diaphragm. The brachial plexus supplies the chest, shoulder, and the entire arm and hand. The lumbar plexus, L1 through L4, powers the lower limbs and pelvic region. And the sacral plexus, or L4 through S5, controls the hips, pelvic floor, knee, and foot. Following are the thoracic nerves. There's 12 pairs, T1 through T12. T1 and T2, upper chest, shoulder, and arm. T3, T5, chest wall, intercostal muscles, and diaphragm. Moving down, T6 through T8, abdomen and lower back. And then to the bottom, T9 and T12, is the lower abdomen, buttocks, and legs. Now, as you look at this, you're going to see that these nerves actually are larger than we might think they are, but these are the nerves of the appendages: musculocutaneous, axillary, radial, median, ulnar, femoral, obturator, sciatic, tibial, and common fibular. So the sciatic nerve, we've talked about quite a bit, but it is the largest nerve in the body, and it branches into the tibial and common fibular nerves. This shows a little more in detail here of the musculocutaneous nerve, and that's C5 through C7. It innervates the biceps, the coracobrachialis and the brachialis. The axillary nerve innervates the deltoid, the teres minor, and the skin over the deltoid and shoulder. Next, we have the radial nerve, C5 through T1, that innervates the deltoid, the aconius, the brachioradialis, extensor carpi radialis, the longus and brevis, posterior forearm muscles, skin of the posterior arm, the dorsal hand, and fingers, minus the pinky. Here's the median nerve, C6 through T1, flexors of the forearm, thenar eminence, lumbricals 1 and 2, skin of the palmar side of fingers, skin of the dorsal distal half of thumb, index, middle finger, and skin of medial forearm. Here we have the ulnar nerve, and it shows a C8 T1, and it shows where it innervates on the graph on the side with the descriptions as well. The femoral nerve, L2 through L4, innervates quads, iliacus, psoas, the sartorius, skin of anterior thigh, the skin of the medial calf, and joints are the hip and knee. The obturator nerve, the L2 through L4, innervates medial aspect of the thigh, the adductor brevis longus and magnus, the lateral rotators, the obturator externus, and the skin of medial and anterior thigh. The sciatic nerve, L4 S3, remembering it is the largest nerve in the body, it innervates muscles of posterior leg, hamstrings, gastrocnemius, soleus, plantaris, muscles of the foot, and skin of posterior thigh, lower leg, and foot, dorsal and plantar. So keeping in mind that when you have a problem with this nerve, all of these areas can be affected. The tibial nerve, L4 through S3, innervates muscles of posterior lower leg, the gastrocnemius, soleus, plantaris, popliteus, tibialis posterior, flexor hallucis and digitorum, and skin of posterior lower leg, sole of foot, medial and plantar surface of toes. Now we have the common fibular nerve, aka common perineal nerve, L4 through S2, innervates muscles of lower anterior leg, tibialis anterior, extensor hallucis and digitorum, and fibularis longus and brevis, and short head of biceps femoris, skin of dorsal foot, and skin of anterior lateral lower leg.